Chapter 10, The Monster from the Lagoon. So, what do we do? Kyle asked. Huh? What do we do? You said you'd help me, but what do we do? He didn't want to beat up on me anymore. I stood groaning. Maybe we could get someone else to steal it, Kyle said. But who would we inflict him on? I asked, rubbing one sore spot after another. Who do we hate that much? There are lots of people I hate, Kyle muttered. I yanked up both of his sleeves again, showing off the mazes of red lines. Enough to do this to them? Kyle shrugged, but he didn't suggest any victims. I looked at Kyle, sitting on my bedroom floor. It was almost like having a friend over. Maybe we could be nice to him, I said. Kyle grunted. How could we possibly be nice to that thing? He asked. Bake him a cake? I smiled. Take him for a walk? Kyle laughed. Bring him presents? We grinned and then sighed. We need to destroy him, Kyle said. But we've tried that, both of us. No, we've tried to get rid of him, and he always comes back. But I haven't tried to actually break him. Have you? I shook my head. Then I sat imagining what we might do to him. If he was just a model, we could smash him with a hammer or drop him off a building or leave him on the road to be run over. But could I do any of those things when he was alive? I shuddered. I don't know if I could do that, I said. It seems really gross. Kyle frowned at me like I was a chicken. Then he sighed. Okay, what if we found a normal dinosaur way for him to die? Like what? I asked. What dinosaur predators live around here? I don't know. Maybe we could toss him into the lion cage at the zoo. I tried to imagine that. Then I remembered what it looked like when the beast ate a chunk of meat. No, I said, I don't think so. Kyle groaned. So what if we find another way dinosaurs died? Like, Clark, you have a whole room full of books about dinosaurs. One of them must talk about how dinosaurs die. I grinned a little sheepish. Yeah, that's a good idea. Kyle grunted, and together we walked over to my bookshelf. Kyle seemed hesitant to dive into them, so I handed him a few and grabbed a couple more for myself. We sat on the floor surrounded by piles of books. The only listings for death were about predators and the mass extinction of dinosaurs. We had to flip right through each book to find anything about other ways dinosaurs died. We'd read aloud a bit that might be useful, shrug if it wasn't, and keep looking. On and on and on. The piles of books got taller and taller, and we slumped lower and lower. Then Kyle sat up straight as if a book himself and said, his voice strangely intense, listen to this. He turned back to the book in his lap and read, struggling over the big words. No matter how cunning and vicious, all creatures are in constant danger from the forces of nature. The volcanoes far to the west were constantly erupting, along with ash. They sometimes brought poisonous gas. Creatures were killed by the thousands. Many, such as the Sinorthosaurus skeleton that was recently discovered, fell or were blown into lakes, where a blanket of fine ash covered them and preserved their remains for 120 million years. So, I said, puzzled and a bit annoyed, where are we going to find a volcano in Calgary? Kyle shook his head. We don't need a volcano. We need ash, and maybe a lake. I didn't get it. Okay, so where do we find a lake? And ash? Kyle sighed. Clark, you're thinking dinosaur size. But we have a dinosaur model, so we only need a model-sized lake. I shrugged. Like a hole in your backyard filled with water? Come on, use your imagination. A hole in the backyard? Yeah, we could dig one in the garden. Nothing's planted yet. And ash? Kyle prompted. Ash. Well, we don't have a volcano, I said. Kyle shook his head. You idiot. You have a fireplace, don't you? A fireplace? I was feeling more and more stupid. And then finally, I got it. A fireplace, of course. We'll clean out the fireplace to collect the ash, then dig a hole in the garden and fill it with water. I ran out of steam. Then what? Kyle laughed. Then we put the beast in it. But he'll just climb out again, I said. Not if your mom is watching, Kyle said, grinning. If your mom is watching, he'll just be a model. We can put a model in a puddle, can't we? He frowned. Not too wussy for that, are you? No, I said, feeling sheepish again. No, this sounds fun. We decided to do it after school the next day. Kyle hadn't the faintest idea how to catch the beast, so I said I'd come over and help him trap it. Then we'd bring him to my house. I checked with Mom. She was thrilled. I could hear her humming as she started supper, and I knew she was thinking, Lucas has a friend, Lucas has a friend. Kyle lived a few blocks the other way from school, in a duplex on a busy street. A huge spruce tree filled most of the yard, shading the front window. The cement steps up to the front door were cracked and stained, and the turquoise paint on the house was peeling. Kyle pulled a key out of his backpack and unlocked the front door. I hadn't told Mom that Kyle had his own key and that his dad wouldn't be home. The house was untidy. Not dirty exactly, but old and worn and rumpled. A jumble of blankets had been pushed to one end of the flowered velvet sofa in their living room. On a table by the sofa was a framed photo of a smiling woman with curly red hair and blue eyes like Kyle's. Your mom, I guessed. Yeah, Kyle said. His jaw tightened. She lives in Vancouver. He pushed past me into the kitchen, and I followed. The kitchen was old and dingy, with dark wooden cupboards and a fridge the color of mustard. Breakfast dishes were piled in the sink. Kyle leaned into the fridge and emerged with a handful of raw ground beef he dropped into a bowl. No problem getting raw burger for the beast. Dad never notices if I take some before I cook dinner. You cook dinner? I asked, stunned. I didn't know anyone in grade 4 who could cook. Yeah, he said while he scrubbed his hands. I'm the king of hamburger helper. Dad doesn't get home until after 6, and he's dirty from work, so he showers. And he's tired. If I waited for him to cook dinner, I'd starve. I'm good at craft dinner, too, but the beast doesn't like it. I stared at him, open-mouthed. He just shrugged and led me down the hall. He stopped in front of a closed door. Ready? He asked. Is he loose in your room? I asked, suddenly nervous. Of course he is, he said. Where else would he be? I kept him in my closet, I said, puzzled he hadn't figured that out. Kyle frowned. So that's why you are just scratched. My closet doors are broken. The landlord won't fix anything, and he won't pay for supplies either. Doesn't the beast attack you in the night? He did me the first night. Oh yeah, said Kyle, rubbing the deep scratch down the side of his face. That's why I've been sleeping on the sofa. I remembered the pile of blankets. Maybe we could put the blankets over our heads, I said, for protection, and we should wear leather gloves. Kyle looked at me like I was nuts. Who has leather gloves? My dad has work gloves, but he needs them. I'm not allowed to touch his tools. If he doesn't have what he needs when he needs it, he can't do his job. He doesn't get paid, and we don't get to eat. So I don't touch his tools, but we could use the blankets. We draped ourselves in blankets and stood at the door again, looking like Jedi Knights who just crawled out of bed. Kyle opened the door, and we stepped into the room. The beast leapt at us, screeching. I jumped back, but he clawed his way up my blanket. I kicked through the blanket, and he flew off, banging against the edge of Kyle's bed. While he lay on the floor, stunned, Kyle knelt beside him and waved the raw meat near his nose. Don't give it to him, I said. Put it in the bag so he'll crawl in on his own. Grab the bag, would you? He asked. I tossed it into the closet. I rooted around in his closet through piles of worn-out runners and old jeans. Finally, I spotted the bag and grabbed it from a dark corner. It smelled even worse than when I'd had it. I gagged and hoped Mom never saw or smelled it. The beast was growling over the bowl of meat. I snapped. Told you not to feed him. Kyle looked up at me with scared eyes. If I hadn't fed him, he'd have attacked again. I sighed and knelt beside the beast. Help me with the bag, I said. Kyle and I spread open the bag. Then I slid it right beside the beast. I slipped my hand under the bowl. The beast growled and shook his head at me. bits of raw meat flying from his mouth. Then he turned back to his food. Slowly, I slid the bag under the bowl and set the bowl down inside. The beast was too focused on eating to notice. He just followed the food straight into the bag. Carefully, Kyle and I drew up the bag around the beast. He didn't realize what was happening until we were pulling the top closed. Then, with a shriek, he struggled to get out, clawing at our hands as we tugged the bag shut. By the time we tied it, Kyle was bleeding, and I had a new gouge across the palm of my hand. But the beast was in the bag, and we were ready to bury it. Kyle and I washed quickly. Then I grabbed my backpack, and Kyle grabbed the beast's bag, and we walked over to my house. We didn't talk much. We were too focused on the job to do anything but walk and think. As soon as we got off Kyle's street, the neighborhood became nicer. Not much traffic, lots of trees, well-kept houses instead of run-down duplexes. The houses were small but freshly painted, with raked and mown lawns. My house looked really nice after Kyle's. It even smelled nicer here, fresh and green. Mom was working in the front garden. I asked her if we could dig in the vegetable garden in the back. "You want to dig the garden for me?" she said, smiling. "Oh yeah, anytime. Well, anytime before I've planted it. After that, it's off limits." I grinned. "No problem. We just want to dig today." I grabbed a shovel and we set to work. The soil was dug every year, so it didn't take long to start a hole. But the soil got harder the deeper we dug. Soon we were turning up chunks of pale gray clay, sticky and dense. But we kept digging, taking turns when we got tired, until we had a hole half as deep as the shovel. Mom brought out a plate of double chocolate cookies and 2 glasses of milk. "You guys are working so hard, I thought you might need a snack." We ate the cookies almost as fast as the beast had eaten his meat. Then we got back to work. I dragged over the garden hose. When the hole was filled with water, we went in search of ash. Our fireplace has a tiny door on the outside of the chimney for cleaning out the ash. I got the little shovel from beside the fireplace and a plastic bag, and Kyle and I shoveled out a winter's worth of gray ash and black coals. Kyle held the bag while I shoveled. Each time I dropped a shovel full of ash into the bag, it rose up in a white cloud, coating Kyle's hands and leaving him choking. I finally learned to slide it off the shovel really slowly, and Kyle learned to hold the bag close to the little door and far from his face. Pretty soon we had a bag full of ash and a clean fireplace. We carried the ash back to the vegetable patch and set it beside our lake. Except it wasn't a lake anymore. The water had drained out, leaving a muddy hole. We liked the idea of a mud pit, so while I filled the hole with water, Kyle stirred the dirt with a broken branch, making a thick, dark soup. Mom wandered over to take a look, and I realized that was the perfect time to take out the beast. She stood near the hole, holding a bucket filled with dead leaves and gardening tools. I hid the bag behind some raspberry canes so she wouldn't see how gross it had become. The beast clawed at my hands as I untied the bag. Then he became still as I turned toward Mom. Before she could stop me, I took what she thought was my beautiful feathered dinosaur model and dropped him into the mud. Mom gasped. Kyle grabbed the bag of ash and spoke in a low, rumbly voice. "The beast fell into a pit of mud. On a normal day, he might have been able to escape. But on this day, this fateful day, the great volcano Kyalalook erupted, burying the dinosaur's world in ash." Mom started to laugh. Then Kyle turned the bag of ash upside down and dumped. Wind caught the ash and blew it into our faces. We choked and jumped back and watched as maybe half of it settled on the surface of the mud. Mom jumped back too. "Oh, you guys, this is gross!" But she was so pleased I was being gross outside with a friend instead of sitting alone in my room that she smiled when she said it. And she didn't say a thing about the ash and clay in her garden. Then Kyle added, still using his voice of doom, "Now we wait to see if the dinosaur can survive this terrible disaster." Mom shrugged. "Well, it's not going to crawl out on its own, is it?" I choked and turned away so she couldn't see my face. Kyle kicked me and turned back to the ash pit. When we just stood there waiting, Mom got bored and went back to work. Kyle and I stood frozen. watching, waiting for movement, for some sign of life. We knew he wouldn't be able to move until Mom was gone, so perhaps now he would crawl out. But he didn't. The ash settled in a gray layer, swirling in little whirlpools when the wind gusted, but nothing rose from below. I smiled, just a little. Maybe this will really work, I muttered. Just wait, said Kyle, but he smiled too. The longer he's down there, the more likely he'll die, I said. He can't breathe mud. I was barely breathing myself, waiting, hoping. And still nothing moved. We smiled at each other. As the ash pit stayed quiet, we started to grin. We've done it, I whispered. We've done it. Kyle's eyes started to shine. You really think so? Oh yeah. He couldn't possibly live that long without air. And then the mud burped. Kyle and I jumped back in horror. He hadn't died. He was still alive. How could that be? He really must be some kind of monster. We stared at the pile of ash. My stomach felt like a mud pit. As we watched, the ash shifted. The mud burbled, and one foot emerged. Just like in a horror movie, one arm reached out, coated in mud and ash, and then another foot, and the head. The beast looked all around until he spotted us. He stared, his eyes filled with hate.